Naina people have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. ASD is committed to diversity and inclusion, and it is with honor and respect that we recognize all Indigenous people who live and learn in our community.
And thank you very much. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the agenda is approved as presented. And I'm sure you guys have already noticed that this is a very packed board meeting, lots going on. We would like to start with our teacher appreciation. The Anchorage School District and, of course, the Anchorage School Board would like to take a minute or two, hopefully a little more than a minute, to thank the amazing people who work with our kids every single day. It is a job of commitment and passion. It is not one that can be duplicated or replicated. Every teacher brings their authentic self to our classroom every single day. And for that, we are thankful. Our students are exposed to amazing humans doing amazing things. And yes, if you know a teacher, if you are a teacher, if you live next door to a teacher, if you are sitting next to a teacher, if you just happen to be in the same space as a teacher, please thank them and think about the teachers in your life that have made you the person, helped to make you the person you are today. So we wanted to take a minute to share some slides and to, of course, thank all of our educators. It's not just that the teachers can't do it alone. We've got amazing staff in every aspect of our district. It just so happens the official days to recognize them all fall in the same month, almost. I think last week was a principal appreciation. Today we have our teacher. This week we had a National Teacher Appreciation Day last week. And this week we have teacher appreciation. So if you do nothing more than write a note or send a text, just thank a teacher. So we would appreciate your help with that. And I don't know if board members wanted to add any other comments to mine, but if you would, now is your time. But I think I spoke for all of us, the sentiments for all of us. All righty. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Kathy for the slideshow. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And as I said, is it time for my Ellie? Ellie, come, you have to stand up and you have to come up here. In the front? In the front. In the front. And board members, you're going to join us. I don't know why you guys there like that. Serving and representing on our board. With our student advisory group. Thank you. Not just in, I thought I was using my middle school voice, but she has done work at the state level. And now I understand she's going at the national level. We cannot keep great works of art private. So a few weeks ago, the board wrote a letter of recommendation for Ellie so that she would we were hoping that she would get to work with Senator Murkowski. Don't you cry? No. Okay. And you can tell the rest.
Last Wednesday, Lisa Murkowski called me and I got the internship. So for the month of June, I'll be in DC working as a intern for Murkowski.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. So of course, on behalf of the board, we do have a little recognition for you. You have your flowers, you have your little banner, your balloons. We also have a little gift bag for you. And we want to send you off knowing that you are valued. You have contributed to our understanding of what's happening with our youth. And we expect to see you back here when you come back, okay? Mom, make sure she comes back or we will have to hunt her down. All right. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Yes. All right, that was great. Oh, welcome, Josh. Josh will be taking over for Ellie. So he is our representative in training still. Okay. I appreciate your patience. And now that brings us to our Denali Awards. But before I get started, I do want to thank the Taiko Drum Club, comprised of students from Sand Lake, Mears, and Diamond. If you got here a little early, you heard amazing drumming. And those students we just want to thank those students and their advisors for taking time out of their schedule to add some joy to our life. So thank you. The Denali Awards. Denali is an Athabascan word meaning great one. And the Anchorage School District is proud to have employees that display greatness in the areas of achievement, service, and dedication. The Denali Award is the highest award offered by the district. Each spring, supervisors submit nominations and a panel of ASD employees selects a number of coworkers and teams of colleagues that demonstrate outstanding commitment to the district's mission of educating students for success in life. Today, we are pleased to recognize the outstanding employees for their commitment to helping all students pursue learning, achievement, and lifelong success. Before we begin, I would like to recognize, we've already had that part done, but I do want the Daiko drumming group. I don't know if any of them are still here. If you're still in the boardroom, stand up, please. The drumming group. Yes, there they are. You guys are truly amazing. And you added just the flair we needed to make this special tonight. So thank you. So thanks again to the Tamagotchi Daiko drumming group. All right. So now, I think board members, you should have your script. We are going, I'm going to go up. You want to come up? You want to stand up? You can read from your seat, but we're going to greet everybody up front. Dr. Bryant, you too.
Cadence Bartlett, please come forward. Cadence, are you here? Oh, good. Cadence, we would like to welcome you to the front of the room in recognition of your contributions to today's award ceremony. The 2023 Denali Award winners will each receive a print from West High School student artist Cadence Bartlett. The title of Cadence's art is Mountains Through Movement, and the medium is acrylic. Cadence is a junior at West. Her art teacher, Dawn Spikers, shared that Cadence is passionate about painting, running, and skiing. She has been serious about art since age 11, which was the age at which she entered her first competition at the 2017 Alaska State Fair. From that point, she was hooked on creating art.
A central theme of her work has always been focused on animals and nature. Specifically, her work is inspired by the beautiful Alaskan landscape. Her fledgling art career started to take off at age 15 when she obtained a business license to start her own small business called Whimsical Alaskan Designs. Since the inception of Whimsical Alaskan Designs, she has sold a variety of her artwork, including metal prints, stickers, and note cards of her paintings in small galleries and local craft fairs across the state. As if operating a small business isn't enough, she also stays busy participating in after-school sports, including cross-country running, cross-country skiing, track, and field. Cadence expressed that she feels very honored to have her art selected to be printed and awarded to the outstanding ASD employees selected for this year's Denali Awards. In her own words, "I am glad to have played a role in recognizing the outstanding work they have done and making the Anchorage School District a better place to learn and grow." Cadence Blaine's Art has generously donated this gift to you to say thank you for your support of the Denali Awards. Thank you, Cadence.
Tell me if I'm not pronouncing the name right. Because I'll put it. Conrado Garland, please come forward. Bartlett High School plant operator Conrado Garland is a model of hard work and quiet professionalism. He is always willing to help and get things done. Garland signed on recently to cover the hours of a night crew supervisor vacancy at Bartlett on top of his normal workload. Bartlett High School principal Sean Prince said he would estimate Garland was spending all day and most of the night maintaining the operations at Bartlett. He is the hardest working BPO I've ever seen, Prince said. He is friendly, polite, and breaks a sweat every day keeping a 50-year-old school running. Bartlett counselor Tad Wellman agrees. Conrado Garland is more than our school's BPO. He is a living example for our students of what it takes to be successful both in life and in work, said Wellman. Mr. Conrado meets every day and every task, no matter the difficulty, with a warmth and willingness to solve the problems at hand. He does this without prompting and with diligence and directions, directly supporting our student body and staff through his tireless efforts. Bartlett English Department co-chair Rebecca Vano said Garland contributes to the school's positive culture. Conrado is irreplaceable, and his support of staff, students, and anyone in need of assistance in our building makes our staff a better place, or makes our school a better place. Please join us in congratulating Conrado Garland on being an ASD Denali Award winner.
Ellen Scott, please come forward. Ellen Scott is an incredible support at Service High School. Not only an advocate for teachers, Ms. Scott exudes student-centered learning and inquiry in the library. Scott is reliable, organized, and trustworthy. Service High School acting principal Imtiaz Azam said, "This is reflected in her role as mentor to new staff and teachers. As an instructional coach, her wisdom and expertise as a seasoned ELA teacher shines," said Azam. She is resource-driven and helps teachers implement best practices to achieve student outcomes. She has also cultivated one of the safest and most welcoming places for our students, the library. Service High School AP seminar teacher Lisa Wiley said Scott is masterful at helping students find academic sources to aid their research. Wiley said that Scott has been instrumental in launching Service High as an AP capstone school. She works with teachers to train them on AP standards through the year. She has traveled out of state annually for training to stay current on educational trends.
Scott has been the award-winning coach for the service battle of the books team. Wiley said Scott has created an environment which supports reading recreationally and academically. Quote, Ellen has oversaw a massive renovation of the Service High Library, which has brought a welcoming intellectual space for all to enjoy. Ellen has been an invaluable educator, mentor, and resource to Service High students and teachers, end quote. She has supported many teachers with getting the required professional development needed for recertification. Scott has also volunteered to be a union representative for service. Please join us in congratulating Ellen Scott on being an ASD award winner. Denali award winner.
Would the Maintenance Grounds Department team please come forward? Step on up, guys. The ASD Grounds Department was responsible for snow plowing, sanding, and removal at all ASD facilities and support buildings during a winter of record-breaking snowfall, which we regularly refer to here at the district as Snowmageddon. This team of roughly 20 employees worked hundreds of hours throughout the nights and sacrificed their weekends to get our schools ready for learning. If students and staff cannot safely access their place of work, then the ASD is not providing a safe environment for students to learn. This team deploys to clear roughly 300 acres of parking lots, driveways, and fire lanes. Congratulations, Maintenance Ground Department, on being awarded the ASD Denali Award for the team category.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. At this time, to celebrate our Denali Award winners, we will take a 15-minute break and be back in the boardroom at 20 of. So we will take a recess. And there's refreshments out front. Yeah, so go out and have a cupcake or piece of cake or whatever they got.
Very neat.
So far, it seems like it's looking through a little. Yeah, it's going through. We got the other, some of the other consent. 15 minutes. It's just not something to eat or drink. Yeah. All right. Back in my cave if you need me. Well, don't go too far. I won't.
I am.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have to anymore.
That's so.
Oh, no.
2007 or something, or 2008.
I forget the years, you know.
There's some many die, right? Thank you. Does it have all the art? Principal of Aspen. Yeah. Does it have all our student items? It's just for but I really think it would be nice if I don't know if it's there, but if we can get rid of them, put around in certain places too, I'd love to. Well, there's the instrument, so that's it.
It's now. Yeah.
I must have been connected to the software. That's good.
Yeah.
Really? My personal favorite.
We'd like to welcome everyone back. Okay. Okay. We'd like to welcome everyone back. Thank you. So the other thing that happens this time of year is that we adjourn the 2022-23 school year and welcome in the next school year, the 23-24 school year, in a process we call Sine Die. I don't know why I can't get the Sine right. I can get the die right, but Sine Die. So it means we come to conclusion for the current year, and then we move into reorganization, restructuring, swearing in our new our re-elected members in a specific process. So with that, I would like to turn the gavel over to our superintendent until such time as we have voted on our new officers for the upcoming year.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So as the superintendent of the Anchorage School District and the interim chair of the meeting, I would like to call this meeting back to order. So at this time, I would ask for Youth Court Judge Sophie Scott and Alaska Supreme Court Justice Peter Mawson to administer the oath of office to swear in our newly re-elected board members, Member Denali and Member Holloman.
Before I was a member of the Alaska Supreme Court, I had a long tenure as a member of the Board of Directors of the Anchorage Youth Court. And on behalf of the Anchorage Youth Court, I just want to thank the Anchorage School District again for traditionally making the Anchorage Youth Court and its chief judge a part of this swearing-in ceremony. And with that, I will turn it over to Chief Judge Sophie Scott, who will administer the oath. Please raise your right hand, please.
I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Dan Denali, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and that I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge my duties
and I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge my duties
as a school board member
as a school board member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to entertain a brief at ease to sign and notarize paperwork.
Need to go and get your paperwork signed.
All right, so that was very fast. So I would like to call the meeting back to order. So we'll be moving on to item F, organization of the 23-24 school board. So at this time, I would entertain nominations from the board on the slate of officers.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Margot Bellamy for president, Carl Jacobs for vice president, Dora Wilson for clerk, and Kelly Lessons for treasurer.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any objections to the nomination and election of officers? Seeing none, the motion carries. Congratulations. At this time, I will hand the gavel and meeting back over to our school board president, Margot Bellamy.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move on. Basically, as you can see, we don't even have to change seats this year. Everybody back in their same position. But I do thank the board for their patience and diligence in making sure that we had a good process in place to make sure we keep the business of the board going. So that brings us to item G, community reports, and we're going to start with our student representative, Miss Ellie Shaw. This is her last report, so we will cheer this last report.
Not necessary. Okay, so SAB, or Student Advisory Board, had our last meeting for the 22-23 school year. Oh my goodness, my picture fell. On Tuesday, April 11th. For high schools, prom season is coming to a close, and I think they all went pretty successful from what I heard. Now it's time for graduation. ASC seniors' last day is Friday, May 12th, in like 3 days. And then graduations are being held all throughout next week. I believe most of them are at Alaska Airlines Center, all of them.
The Big 8.
Yeah, the Big 8. And then the rest of ASC students still have a few more weeks, but then it's time for summer for them. It has been the biggest pleasure of mine to be the student rep for the school board, but I feel very confident leaving it in Josh's hands for the next probably 2 years. So that is my report. Thank you.
And thank you very much. All righty, moving on, we have the next report is our safety and security. Dr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we'll receive a high-level briefing on data and next steps related to safety and security in our schools. I envision this will be one of multiple presentations on safety and security, as this is a high priority and multifaceted topic. We want to make sure there are opportunities to engage with the board and community, so consider this part one of a broader discussion.
All right, so thank you for having us this evening. We have a few different items that we're going to share with you in regards to safety. We had a number of questions from the school board, and we're going to try to answer most of those through this brief presentation. The first of which was what's kind of where we're at with our discipline and behavioral data so far at this point this year. And when I show these incidents, this is like dates. We have the same dates for each school year. So this is as current as May 1st for the data. So looking at our kind of the four of the safety types of occurrences that we would consider assaults, threats, weapons of firearms, and weapons of other than firearms. We have 3 different years there. We have a pre-pandemic year, we have last school year, and then we have this school year. If you look at this school year compared to last, we have about 2,000 less students, right? So if you're looking at the number of incidents in these areas, our assaults from last year are up, our threats from last year are up, weapons with firearms are down, but with 2,000 less kids, and our weapons other than firearms are up from this year. Just one of the things I want to explain is that hearing from the schools, the actual severity of the different incidents are very much higher and of more concern than they've had in years past. Going to the next slide, we have the alternative placements and the expulsion data as of May 1st. We only have 2 years on this one. From the pre-pandemic, we had Alternatively placed 277 at this date. And as of this date, this year is 201. Expulsions pre-pandemic was 12, and this year it's 10. Looking at the top offenses in these areas, especially with alternative placements, we look at before the pandemic and currently this year, those alternative placements are, the top one is drugs, but the next two are completely different from pre-pandemic. These are the top areas for the alternative placements is fighting and assaults now. And according to the schools, when we're doing alternative placements, it is of concern, the number and the severity of those. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jenny Knutson, who will talk a little bit more about threat assessments.
Okay, thank you. Another piece of information that we look at and monitor are our threat assessments. And some of the disciplines that you see, discipline incidents and around threat rise to the level where we're really going to want to investigate a little bit further, and they require a threat assessment. So threats indicate that a student poses a danger to the safety of school staff or students through potential acts of violence. And so we really want to look at this a little bit closer when these things happen. ASD started to implement threat assessment process in 2019-20 school year. Due to the pandemic, it wasn't fully implemented. So you'll see the last 2 years of data on the slide where we've really started to work on doing these processes at school. A threat assessment really is a process that we have in place. Many school districts around the country do this as well. And it's a process of evaluating the risk for violence that is posed by someone who really has expressed intent to inflict harm on others. So this is an area, like I said, we're going to investigate further and may result in the development of a safety plan for the school or that child. It really is best practice with threat assessments to do it as a team. Not one person is doing this in evaluation or assessment. And it really includes the principal, mental health professional, and typically an SRO if available. And so what you'll see on this chart, it really follows the same pattern that you saw with the discipline data. We've seen an increase from 37 threat assessments done last year to 113 to date that are in process or have been finalized and completed. And this is really a combination of more awareness and training and completing threat assessments, as well as incidents, as you've seen with the discipline data. So those are kind of wrapping up the data we look at when it comes to safety. And I'm going to turn it over to Ashley to talk about some of the work that's being done.
Good evening, Ashley Lally, Security and Emergency Management. The first slide here is a brief overview of my department's strategic plans. So the actual plan I have in my office goes into a lot of details and targeted goals for these plans. But for tonight, I'm only going to be talking about that first category, which is plans, SOPs, and training. I am hoping in June to conduct maybe during a work session to go over specifically the physical security side, because we are doing a lot of work in that arena, and I'm really anxious to share a lot of our hard work with you guys. But again, today, we're just going to be talking mostly about training. Next slide, please. Okay, and so I wanted to kind of show some things that we started new last school year, and then our plans for next school year. So at the Leadership Summit last summer, we conducted a weapons handling course for all principals, and that was really a direct result of starting to see an increase in weapons being brought to our schools. So we did conduct that, and we will continue to expand that training, and APD conducted that training for us. Something new we started this year was conducting after-action reviews following critical incidents. So my team, Dr. Knutson has come out with us, APD, when they're available, conducts these AARs, and that is to obviously get feedback about the incident, lessons learned, and how we can just improve. I think these have been really fruitful. My next steps for that are to make it a little bit more programmatic and a little bit more consistent and robust for next school year. Something new we started this school year was we started to send out drill surveys after drills to school staff. And then we also met with the student advisory board to get student feedback. And we are hoping to meet more often with students next school year, but continue to send out the drill surveys for staff. And part of what we struggle with for the emergency drills, I only have 4 people in my department, including myself. So it's really difficult for us to get out and observe drills. We've tried a few different things. We used to have secondary schools email us when they were doing their ALICE drills so we can go out. That was interrupted by COVID. So we do have things in the work to try to put systems in place so we know when drills are happening before they're happening and not just after the fact. So we can actually go on site, observe, and provide immediate feedback, right on site as they're happening. This school year, we've also applied for 4 grants. You can see them listed there. I do not know yet if any of these are awarded. I'm hopeful that some of them will be. But I'm continuing to kind of hit the ground running with, obviously, with our financial situation and anticipating still not really being full next year and trying to find any avenue I can to get funding to continue to install the systems that we need, the plans that we need, and the training that we need. Last Tuesday, we conducted a crisis action team active attack tabletop. And that was with the superintendent, with cabinet members, and with other key district leaders. I thought it was a really fruitful conversation. We're hoping to meet again in June to create an action plan for our actionable next steps following that. And you can see when I talk about our EOC drills next year, we really are putting a bit of focus on active attacks and our preparedness for them. And then lastly, for this past school year, as you guys are well aware, the Be Smart weapon safety, you guys passed a board resolution, and the superintendent sent out his letter. And then anytime there was a weapon found in a school, the volunteers from Be Smart reached out directly to that school, offered to go on site and provide materials, gun locks, and they were successful in doing that in several of our schools this year. So we're continuing to collaborate on that partnership as well. And then plans for next school year. So everything that happened this school year, still going to happen next school year, just going to continue to elevate. But we do have other training that we're really focusing on next year as well. So first, for our emergency operations plan, we are adding 3 annexes to that plan. We are adding a cyber annex, a mental health annex, and a home preparedness annex. And that's just really an effort to stay consistent with best practices for emergency plans. So we're working on those currently. We are conducting senior leader training this August. There is a group coming up. It's called the Texas Extension Engineering Service, and essentially they put on emergency preparedness classes. They travel all over the country. It's free of charge. It's an amazing resource, and they put on really great classes. So we are hosting the crisis leadership class and the senior officials workshop for all hazards preparedness. On top of our leadership here at the district, I've also reached out to our community partners in Anchorage, because really, as we know, if a crisis happens, it involves everyone. And we really need to be in lockstep with the municipality of Anchorage for any response that affects our schools. So I did extend that invite to our community partners as well. One thing we are doing new for next year is training for our safety security specialists and intervention coaches that are in our schools. And what we've kind of landed on for a consistent, essentially mandatory requirement for any safety security specialist that is in our secondary schools is this National Association of School Resource Officer school security training. So our APD school resource officers, they go to the National Association of School Resource Officers school resource officer training. That's a requirement for them to be an SRO. So this is the same model, but targeted for school security officers. So the reason we went with NASRO versus any other options is because they really understand the whole picture of what they're teaching in those classes. And what I mean when I say that is they're really focused on best practices for students. And they are very in tune with very quickly changing tides, as we've seen. We just saw the data. NASRA really pays a lot of attention to that stuff, and they structure their classes around, the most critical needs for our students. You can Google that. They have the agenda posted, so you can see the details of what they will learn at that class. We are also inviting TEACs back up. They're doing the crisis leadership class in August. They're going to come back up in October and do a when disaster strikes class for safety security. And that's really like a baseline emergency management. It's really self-preparedness, but all of those skills can be used in the school setting as well. And then in November, in conjunction with the school nurses, we are hoping to host a first aid and triage class. So that will really be kind of structured towards more crisis medicine. We have emergency action, first aid teams, that kind of training. And then there below, you can see our training plan for next school year with the dates for the Emergency Operations Center. So those are the topics we will be focusing on for next school year. We are focusing too with principal training during our general leadership meetings, which we have once a month, dedicated time to discuss security at every single general leadership meeting. So I'm really excited for that opportunity. It's rare that I get consistent FaceTime with principals. So the emergency management and the crisis leadership, those are just examples. We're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff directly with principals next year. And then lastly, continuing to build on the Be Smart collaboration. We are hoping to get them kind of towards the beginning of the year to do a general leadership presentation with all the principals, or maybe at Leadership Summit. We haven't really decided where that will land yet. Much like we did the fentanyl presentation, which I think was super impactful, and we kind of want to structure the same thing for Be Smart. We're also collaborating with them for community outreach events. They are planning on going to the Clothesline Project. So if any of you are familiar with that, it's really great, and it really reaches a lot of our families. And they will have supplies there and gun locks there, and really just conducting the outreach that they do. And then, of course, continued direct outreach as we have these incidents in schools, and the volunteers will reach out directly and go on site as needed to provide materials. So that's it for my part. I think maybe there's one more slide. So I guess, are we taking questions?
Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Member Dunley.
Thank you, Madam President. So we know that threats to our elementary schools come from outside, and that's why we are investing so much money in hardening our elementary schools, making them harder to get into by external threats, and improving the security camera operations inside so that officers can see inside the schools during a threat. But the threats to middle schools and secondary schools nationally have tended to come from possibly even inside those schools. So about 4 years ago, the board passed a resolution asking the city to expand the number of student resource officers, or APD officers, to include one in each middle school at least. Currently, we only have one middle school covered by a resource officer, and that's Clark. So no other middle school has resource officers actually there, similar to their presence in our high schools. So I think that needs to be one of our priorities in our safety program, is to continue to assert that resolution that the board had actually passed, this board has passed, in seeking to get resource officers into our middle schools. Now, we know one of the big problems here is that the schedule for APD officers is 4 days a week, 8 hours a day. We don't need 10 hours a day. We don't need 10 hours of coverage in our schools. We only need about 8 or 8.5. So that one of the things to do that would expand and fully cover the ability of those officers to cover the existing schools and possibly additional middle schools would be to negotiate or encourage the executive and the assembly to negotiate with the police association, employees association, to get a letter of agreement to have different hours for our SROs, so we'd get more coverage to protect more of our children than we're currently able to do. We know this is a serious problem because several years ago at Service High School, when one of our SROs was not available on a Friday, and the other one got sick or had to be called away or something, there was a gap in protection, and it was very, very unfortunate that that's when a gun-related incident happened at the Service High School. And we've been warning about that for years, but it actually happened. And there's no reason to believe that might not happen again. So that's another reason why negotiating or trying to get the city involved in negotiating with the police association to be able to go to 8 hours for our SROs and expand the coverage for our to protect our kids better that way with the same amount of hours, police hours. So I'm wondering what's your thoughts on adding that to this agenda that you've presented to us today?
Yep, through the president to member Donnelly. Great points. And yep, I've actually been working behind the scenes. I'll speak to the hours first, just because that's what I've currently been involved in. We are actually attempting, and behind the scenes, they've talked to the union and very optimistic about the possibility, and we are aiming for 5/10s. The reason we did talk about 8 hours, but with elementary and all the way to secondary, what ends up happening is sometimes elementary at the end of the day is having to call patrol, and there is a little bit of a gap with the consistency. We really prefer to have SROs responding to our schools for as long as possible. So we are aiming to have them change to 5 10-hour days, and we are looking at how much that will cost us to pay that overtime cost. Again, this is very preliminary information, but I'm a big proponent. I believe that they should be in school 5 days a week. The SROs support it. Everything we're hearing from the union so far is positive. So we are planning to continue that conversation. I was kind of hoping to have that in conjunction with any school start time decisions that are made. It might be a good time to implement that. So we definitely are exploring that option. In terms of staffing, that's a much harder one. APD is very, very low staffed right now. We've been short SROs for the last 2 years. So we're already kind of understaffed. And until APD can get to full staffing, I don't think, at least not right now or for the next year, we will have success with requesting even more, because we can't even get the minimum right now.
Follow up, Member Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Just explain why that point is so important to the public. In secondary schools, our middle schools and our high schools, we need an SRO physically present in those schools to defend them against potential internal threats, because the time frame there is different. And I just think it's an essential safety measure to have an SRO in every one of our middle schools, as well as in our high schools at all times that we have students present there. And we don't have that now. And I think that has to be one of our goals, and is actually a resolution adopted by this board also.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Member Holloman.
Partly this is, it might be good if we were able to clarify our position, because from my understanding, I think there's a danger of implying to the public that the SROs are there to guard the schools. And to my knowledge, that's never been the case. At most, we've had an SRO per high school, but they actually covered middle schools and elementary and the community. And so they were subject to being called away at any time. My recollection from before, we provide them with an office, a computer, a phone, and they would situate there to do work and whatnot. So they were frequently available in the school, but not ever guaranteed. The big plus, as I understand it, is just that they do develop familiarity with staff, procedures, with the students. If they've got time, they're there as a resource to talk to classes. But actually trying to have a designated officer in the building during all school hours would be a change from what we've done historically. I also would object to the district covering the cost per se. I've always been an advocate that it's part of APD and should come out of their budget. So I don't know if Madam President might want to create a position paper. I think the perceptions people have vary, because SROs are used very differently in different parts of the country. And I don't know that our situation is unique, but it's definitely not the same as some other places. I for one, was stunned that Uvalde has its own police department as a school district. That startled me. I can't imagine that happening, but obviously it does. But it might be good if we had clarity on it just for board members, so we do understand what we consider normal right now and what we consider aspirational in the future. But that would be a huge expansion of what we've done in the past.
Thank you, Member Holloman. And I think that's a discussion that we probably need to have either at governance. I don't know that we'll have time during the retreat, but certainly during governance. Other comments, questions? I appreciate the information, appreciate your time, and we will look forward to part 2 and maybe a part 3. Thank you guys very much. Any final comments, Dr. Bryant?
No further comments. We look forward to keeping the conversation going.
Okay, that brings us to item H on the agenda. We will resume our goal monitoring at our next meeting, which is on the 23rd. So this brings us to our first public comment period on our agenda. For those who have signed up to provide public comment, the board has set aside an hour time slot at the beginning of the meeting for public comment. Public comments in excess of the hour will be heard at the second opportunity, which is at the end of our meeting, or you may submit your comments in writing. During public comment, board members will not answer questions or engage in discussion. It is the public's time to speak and the board's time to listen. The school board welcomes the public to observe and contribute to our meetings through their comments, through your letters. However, to be productive, our meetings must be structured and civil. Our public meetings are conducted under Robert's Rules of Order, which is a set of rules for orderly meetings. Those rules require that the board and public be civil and respectful of each other's opinions and statements. And as you enter the boardroom, there is a blue and white handout that goes over the requirements for our orderly meetings within our boardroom. A few of them, to just remind you, is to not attack a member's or speaker's motives. No profanity or foul language. Refrain from disturbing the meeting, which really means no cheering, applause, outbursts, or waving of signs or posters. If you have handouts that you wish to share, you may hand them to Ms. Foster here to my left, and she will make sure each board member will get one. So as president of the board, it is my duty to enforce these rules of civility and decorum. As such, and consistent with Robert's Rules of Order, I have the authority to rule any speaker out of order for violation of the rules and or fail to conduct themselves in a civil manner. And so with that framework, we are ready to begin our public comment. In person, I'd like to call Robin Peckrow. One of these days, will you please announce? Yes, I apologize for now and in the future. I keep mispronouncing it. It is not intentional.
I know.
Could you please state your name?
Sure. My name is Robin Peckrow. Are we ready?
Absolutely. You have 3 minutes.
Let's keep it simple tonight. I am representing a number of parents who are respectfully requesting the required reading lists for next fall. Each parent is eager to help, and they are hoping to make an impact on their students' reading and comprehension skills. This is what we want, right? We want parent involvement. Here's our chance. We want parents to dig right in and and commit to helping us with our reading issues. You probably know I have a SPED endorsement, and I am very aware of how much extra effort a student with a 504 puts in order to keep up with classwork. I'm aware that schools have emails for parents and guardians and would like you to do your part by issuing a directive or whatever it's called to ask all language arts teachers to send out their official reading list for next fall, and also to put in an alternative book. This request was precipitated by moms who believe that many of the books that their kids are currently reading were dubious and dark and maybe not fulfilling our curriculum needs. The moms who read last year's books believe they're dark, they're destructive, and that students need some uplifting. They need books that are filled with hope for a brighter future, faith in our systems, strong moral values, especially truth, patriotism, and pride in oneself. Please help all our students to meet reading goals in the future by giving them a head start. Please help them with books that they will be needing to read for next year and have a chance to think about it before the school year starts. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Next in person, we have Lisa Sparrow. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, school board members. I'm a teacher at ASD. I'm here to ask why On the Radar is no longer accessible for teachers. On the Radar is a weekly newsletter put out by the district. Technically, it is for principals, but until last week, it was also available to staff on the district website under staff resources. It is a great resource for finding out about what is going on in the district. There's information about testing windows and scores, information from the state, information about principal changes, information about upcoming trainings, lots of info. None of this information is controversial. I've never read anything in it that could not be shared district-wide. Unfortunately, starting with the May 4th, 2023 edition, teachers are now blocked from reading On the Radar. No explanation was provided as to why teachers are blocked. Teachers have been told that only principals and administration have access, and principals will pick and choose what information they feel is relevant to share with teachers. There are 2 problems with this. First, it's insulting to teachers. As stated above, there is nothing included in On the Radar that needs to be hidden from teachers. The district should be happy there are teachers taking the time to inform themselves about what's going on. Teachers are part of the team. We need to be informed. Secondly, when each principal is picking and choosing what information to share and then sharing it through their own lens, there's not consistency within the district. Each school is being told different things by their principal and then operating differently. If ASD wants to see changes implemented district-wide, there has to be a shared, consistent message. In closing, I'm asking the school board members to help get teachers back their access to On the Radar. Classroom teachers are professionals and should be allowed to pick and choose for themselves what information they want to learn about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Isabel Ledoux. Isabel Ledoux. Okay. Norman Beasley. I think Norman's on the phone. Don't see him. Let's try Sherry Stryzek. I think she's here. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for your time. I have 2 concerns. One is the anonymity of review committee, which goes over controversial issues such as challenged books, which I believe is not maybe operating under the Open Meetings Act, AS 44.62.310-312. As I understand it, the act requires that all meetings of a public entity's governing body be open to the public. The act requires that the public be given reasonable notice. If I cannot be a member of the committee, which has enormous power, I only ask to be present at the committee's meetings because I want to hear the thinking behind the decisions that are made. If 11 people can keep a book from being challenged for 3 years, I want to know the reason why the book is being held in trust for those 3 years by ASD through this clandestine operation. I want to know the deliberations in real time, not as a written report. I'm asking specifically about the recently challenged transgender book called George, renamed Melissa. I also have doubts about the qualifications and impartiality of the committee. Does a high school student, librarian, teacher, or parent or administrator know more about the suitability of a book for my child than I do? Second concern is the purchase of books with taxpayer money, which appear to be anti-American propaganda, indisputable pornography, and leaves parents with doubts about the curricular value of some books. When taxpayers and ASD sponsors approve a graphic novel such as The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, I would like to read you the following quote from this book. The guy next to him made a circle with the thumb and middle finger of one hand and poked the middle finger of his other hand through the circle, poked it in and out, in and out. I knew your mother. Did you know that? I knew her real good. I took her from behind that creek over there. The soldiers laughed. One of them made a squealing sound. I told Hassan to keep walking, keep walking. What a tight little sugary blank she had. The soldier was saying, shaking hands with the others and grinning. More objections to this book, The Kite Runner, also include a same-sex gang rape of a boy and the depiction of distrust in adults. This book was banned in Afghanistan because it showed ethnic groups in bad light. It seems outrageous that taxpayers are paying for instruction with materials neither morally acceptable nor offering useful insight into the culture that denies the book. Thank you.
And thank you very much. That concludes our first period for comment, public comment. And that brings us to item, first of all, before we leave public comment, the written comment that the board has received is available and attached to the agenda as well. That brings us to our consent agenda. Item J.
Madam President, I move to, I'm sorry, first, would you like to field to see if there's any board member wishes to pull an item?
Sure.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Absent any objection, then I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes memorandum number 146, 137, 140, and 144. Is there any opposition to the approval of the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the consent agenda is passed. That brings us to item K, which is our action items. Whenever you're ready.
Madam President, I move to sorry, briefly, is really rude.
I'm sorry. You want me to? Can you pull it up for her? We just need a brief at ease to get the language. Whenever you're ready, Member Jacob.
Madam President, I move to approve the expulsion of students associated with ASD incident numbers 1364357 and 1365779 as discussed in the executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second to approve the uncontested student hearings, incidents number 1364357 and 1365779 as discussed in executive session. Is there any opposition to the motion to approve? Hearing and seeing none. Uncontested student hearings is approved unanimously. Item 2, Memorandum 141.
Madam President, I move to approve ASD Memorandum number 141, adjustment to school start times.
Second.
And we have, it's been moved in second. Before we discuss, we have some testimony. All right, let's start with on the phone, looks like Lottie Burns. Let's see, Lottie Burns, yes. *6 to unmute, Miss Burns. Ms. Burns, can you hear us? Is she allowed to talk? Ms. Burns, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm a parent of 2 kids in ASD, elementary and high school, and I'm also an ASD employee. I'm a nurse in a middle school, and I'm just concerned about the school start times. There's been such a lack of attention to it, really poorly covered in the media. I was only aware because I'm working in a school. Sorry, I'm walking my dog. But the plan is like for this fall, you're talking about making a huge change with like 3 months notice. So for people like me who have a kid in elementary, with them getting out earlier, we're looking at an increased need for childcare, which is already $500 to $800 a month. And that is probably going to increase, with the extra hour added in. The programs that do have pickup service at schools are very limited, and not all schools even have, have an after-school program available. So we're looking at parents who are going to have to like limit their job hours. I mean, I would consider changing my job just to be able to be consistently getting my kids to school. For middle school, the kids aren't going to have daylight during the winter because they'll be going to school when it's dark, and then they'll be coming home when it's dark because they don't have any recess. And then it's going to be a transportation problem for them too, because their parents are either going to be losing work hours to get their kids to school later, or the kids are going to have to get themselves across town if they're in one of these programs like an immersion that doesn't have a bus service. And then for the high school kids, which this is supposed to benefit, and I agree, it might benefit them to get the extra sleep. But, we depend on them for childcare to be home for the younger kids. They're going to be losing out on after school work if they have jobs. If they have sports, they're either, I don't know what's been considered for that. They're either going to have it before school where they're still going to be getting up early, or it's going to run really late at night, which is going to be difficult for the families that have to transport them. And the thing is that I know it's hard for kids to get up early, but they're going to stay up late regardless of when school is starting. And they just need to learn, when you have a job, most jobs start at 8 or earlier in the morning. That's when you have to be ready to get up.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burns. Your time is up. In the boardroom, I'd like to call Philip Walters and Corey Inks to the front, please. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Philip Walters. I am a parent of 2 ASD elementary students, a Greening Middle School band teacher and coach. I also taught at Bartlett High School for 8 years. To be direct, I ask that you reject the recommendation by ASD administration to completely change school start times. The proposal they put forward will create an incredible hardship on a huge portion of ASD families while not actually solving the problem. Having elementary schools let out in the middle of the afternoon puts parents who are working 9-to-5 jobs in the impossible situation of having to either pay for expensive childcare, if they can find it, which is a big if, or quit their job to become a stay-at-home parent. Either choice has a massive financial impact on families who are already struggling in tough economic times. I know that if these changes go through, either my wife or I will have to quit our job to be able to care for our 9 and 5-year-old sons, as the wait list for programs like Campfire are years long. We've been on a wait list for 4 years. Anchorage does not have the infrastructure to support the childcare needs that would result from this change, nor does it demonstrate any sort of capacity to gain the infrastructure to support this in the long term. There's a nationwide childcare shortage, and this change would only exacerbate the problem in Anchorage. Middle school sports will be badly affected by this as well. Practices ending at 6 p.m. How late will meets and matches go? How does this later ending time benefit our student athletes? Will we simply pull them out of their afternoon classes so meets and matches can start earlier, affecting their learning? Who will coach these sports? I know I won't be able to if I ever want to see my families in the evenings. If we have to leave for a meet during the school day, who will cover my classes in a district that already suffers from massive shortages of substitute teachers? Elementary needs to finish last because they do not have the numerous after-school activities that middle school and high school students do. All of this so that high schoolers might possibly get more sleep. I get that. I did 6:30 jazz band for 8 years at Bartlett High School. I get that. But more likely, students will just stay up later and be just as tired the next day. I have students who brag about staying up till 4 a.m. playing video games. It's almost like a challenge to them. New school start times cannot offset responsible parenting, making students go to bed, turn off the screens, turn off the games, turn off the phones. I get the theory behind it, and it is possible it will have a positive impact on high school, but there is no way that the benefits will outweigh the negative consequences these changes will have on our elementary and middle school families. If we truly want to do what's best for all kids and their families, we need to keep in mind what is best for all kids and their families. It brings to mind the Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. I can tell you firsthand, these changes will be harmful to our elementary and middle school families. Instead of turning the whole ASD schedule on its head and creating so many new hardships for ASD families, I propose a simple solution. Move all school start times back 30 minutes. That way, the infrastructure the Anchorage families already have in place can work for all of us instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Next, Mr. Engst. Followed by Michelle Carton, which is online. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, President Bellamy and the ASD School Board. Thank you for taking the time to hear from the community and your staff on this very important topic, school start times. I'd like to bring some additional context to this topic. As of May 1st, ASD has had approximately 350 AEA resignations. We are on course for a record number of educators leaving the Anchorage School District this year. 50% of those educators resigning are in their first 5 years of education. We are bleeding our youngest educators. The ones we just hired, the ones we just trained, the ones we just invested in. We're doing this at an alarming rate. By August, we should easily witness over 400 resignations this year. And although you will hear from some that these numbers align with past resignation numbers, this is a record-breaking number. Why, you ask? Because each year, as the number of resignations increases, the number of your educators, or FTE, has decreased. ASD had over 3,500 AEA educators on staff in 2011. This year, ASD barely has 3,000. Remember, the pool to replace these 400 educators is exceptionally shallow, with few applicants. In fact, there are maybe as many as 0 or close to 0 special education teacher applicants. Even elementary ed positions are currently hard to fill, with 30 unfilled positions for next year. So how does school start times fit in? Your educators have mixed opinions on this topic. About a third are in favor, a third against, and a third who have no opinion and are fine either way. One group of educators, although, has been reaching out over the last few weeks. Middle school educators who have children, some are single mothers. They share the new 2:30 elementary ending time is challenging, as the middle school duty day will end at 4:30, and their children will be unattended for 2.5 hours or need after-school care. If you approve these new school start times, you need to adopt a plan to support after-school care programs for your staff and possibly the community as a whole. A staff-specific after-school program may look different from the after-school programs currently operating in our schools. Hence, ASD needs to think differently about supporting our staff. We cannot afford to shed more educators. Several middle school educators shared that they may need to resign from their teaching position without childcare for their children. Ultimately, it won't matter when school begins if educators are not there to welcome the students. We need our educators, all of our educators. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Online, we have Michelle Carton. Do you see Michelle? Yes. Michelle? Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Michelle Carton. I'm an elementary school librarian at Tudor Elementary, and I am in my 16th year as an educator. One of the things that I really appreciate about this board is their support for honoring the needs of the community, and I've seen that here more than I have in any other environment that I've taught in. I want to address the school start times and give an idea just from my own personal vignette as we look at implementing for the 23-24 school year. In 2020, I sold my house in Anchorage because it was much larger than what I had needed, and at that time the market was really good. So I set out as a single parent to begin to bid on houses. All 8 bids that I did went for over $50,000 over asking price, as well as over the actual value of the home. And after many months of doing this, I was forced to move to Palmer in order to qualify for a house that I would be able to afford, which that worked for us because we made the commitment knowing that school started the times at which we were starting. So this year, we wake up at 5:45 in the morning to get to elementary school on time. This has been a big adjustment for my elementary school students and my middle school students, but it was something that we knew that we could be able to do and a commitment we knew going into it as we purchased a home in the Valley. With inflation at 8.5%, the highest since 1982, and the market the tightest that it's been in decades, the ability to move and make changes is challenging. Many teachers are in this similar position. And having this approval so close to the end of the school year, teachers are going to be in that similar position and have to consider whether they are going to move levels or quit their jobs. I love teaching in elementary school. I love being in leadership at elementary school. The problem is if this school start time happens, we're going to go from having to awake at 5:45 a.m. to 4:45 a.m. Unfortunately, I already looked into what it would be like to move to Mat-Su Valley in order to teach, in order to live. And the problem is there isn't a lot of availability, and I would have to leave the district that I have enjoyed teaching in the most. So my proposal is to give a year for families to be able to plan for this major change. I just wanted to give this something to look at as I wonder if the board has taken a look at some of the research. Because in my preliminary research for adjusted school start times, they did not find fruitful outcomes in 2 specific demographics, in northern and harsher climates that are similar to Alaska, as well as communities with a high number of schools receiving Title I funds similar to ASD. And the final one, the third demographic is communities without a strong public transportation system. Without all 3 of these, or in
Thank you very much. In the boardroom now, we have Rosalind Grady-Weiss come to the front, and Mindy Hymas. Excuse me. Welcome. Hello. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Hello, Madam President and Bellamy and fellow school board members. As you all know, I'm Rosalind Grady-White. I am the president and founder of ACBE, a mother of 5, 1 on their way to public high school, Go Bears, and 3 in elementary school. First and foremost, I would like to give a shout out to all the educators out there. As an inspiring educator receiving my student teacher authorization certificate today from the state of Alaska, the journey has definitely been a journey. And I just want to say, put some respect on your name, and we have some work to do. I am here today to voice my concerns over time change. I've asked this question time and time again. Who are all the stakeholders that are supporting this change? There was a survey done, but no one has made mention to who took this survey, what the demographics came from, which I think is really important, because when I watched the town hall meetings, I didn't see anyone who represented me. So I would like to know who supported this movement from the South to the East, from a single parent to a two-parent household, and even nationalities. Another thing that is important to me is, does this change affect those that are in disenfranchised neighborhoods? As we know, a lot of data never includes those that are disenfranchised, and I'm really concerned about those voices that are not being heard. Childcare is no better last week, and I don't have faith that it will be better in 3 months or more. Alaska is one of 7 states that charge for childcare like you're going to college. This also is not equitable in every school. Some schools have 21st century and others have campfire, which are both completely have different entrance qualifications. Which leads me to say that I'm worried about a majority of houses that function differently from one another, because everyone's households are not the same. You do have middle schoolers and high schoolers that look out for their little siblings so that single parents like I can continue to work, or will be at work and cannot be at home until work is over. What are the plans to fix the chronic absenteeism we are currently facing? Have anyone actually gone into their Title I schools and sat in classrooms where elementary students are exhausted in the morning because they have to be to school at 9 a.m. And now you want the same littles to be at school at 8 a.m. Everyone's households are not the same. If we're going to talk about anything, we should talk about setting attendance goals and social aspects of going to school. Changing hours will not just affect high school and middle school, but in fact, attendance issues start early. Since we're talking about data, we should know that the Academy of Pediatrics policy statement that there's a link between school attendance and good health, and at least 10% of kindergarten and first grade students miss a month or more of school a year. Chronic absenteeism becomes more common in middle school and high school. And yes, I've heard about circadian rhythms, but we move differently in Alaska. And I really think that we should look at the data in Anchorage specifically before you decide on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hymas, when you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I come to you today as a parent and an ASD employee, but also for a lot of my coworkers and families in the community who are unable to be here tonight. I am concerned about the rushed nature of this decision. I know that this has been a topic of discussion since January, and I participated in the Zoom meeting and filled out the survey. But the fact that a recommendation and a decision was made moving forward, that was brought to my attention via Facebook. I do not feel that the community at large knows that this is on the table to be voted on tonight for the upcoming school year that's just a few months away. Dr. Bryant's recommendation was not included in his previous newsletter that did go out to the school staff, nor was it on the ASD website until today, stating in the hot topics, when you go look at where it talks about school start times, up until today, the recommendation was not there. This is very alarming, and teachers do not have the opportunity to change schools at this point if the new start times don't work for them, as staffing is done and positions have been filled. As previous testimonies have said, parents are going to be scrambling for childcare. We know there is a serious lack of childcare facilities in our city. Many parents in our community depend on the current school start times to schedule their work and family obligations, and they have structured their work around these current school times. Changing the start times will make it difficult for working parents to find suitable and affordable childcare. The community will not have time to respond to this new level of childcare needed in a sufficient amount of time, as this is just a few months away. Community childcare facilities already have a year or longer wait list for kids. So how will families be able to find childcare in less than 3 months? Many families, particularly in my school, work together, having their older children help with the younger children. This will no longer be an option, as the youngest children getting out of school first, they will be getting out first in the early afternoons. I am particularly worried about middle school start times, as in my school, I see we already have a coaching deficit for sports. And if practices are starting at 4:15 going until 4:45, there will be a barrier for hiring and retaining coaches. Students will be forced to either stay up later for practices and games and events, diminishing family time and time for homework. And if these practices move to the morning when there is more time, then we've defeated the whole purpose of why we are recommending to make this change. We can all agree that students would definitely benefit.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move online. Celeste Groudon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You have 30 minutes. I'm sorry. 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity
Sorry
to testify. That's all right. My name is Celeste Hodge Groudon, and I am the President and CEO of the Alaska Black Caucus. The Alaska Black Caucus champions the lives of Black people in the areas of health, economics, education, and justice. I want to go on record using my voice tonight to speak on behalf of the voiceless, those you didn't see or hear from at the town halls regarding the proposed adjustment to school start times, but who felt comfortable enough to share their concerns with the Alaska Black Caucus. Those missing voices belong to the communities I serve, people of color. The fact there was very little or no voices from people of color, depending on what town hall you attended, is concerning. I invite you to review the videos and ask what can be done to get those missing voices to the table so they can be heard and included in the outcome next time. It's not enough to say we invited everyone and they just didn't show. What I heard from parents is that they will be challenged greatly by the proposed adjustment to school start times because they need their jobs and have little to no flexibility when it comes to work times. We know many families from the communities I serve won't have options. They don't have the comfort of taking leave or adjusting their work time. The 1 hour delay on Mondays is also challenging for families who have to work multiple jobs. The proposed start time creates challenges for families struggling with childcare issues to begin with, let alone trying to find one day with a 1 hour delay. Many families rely on older siblings for childcare, as you've heard already. This is complicated in the afternoon when elementary students are released earlier than their siblings. Not every family can afford the luxury of staying home with their children in this economy, especially in communities of color. Some schools are already struggling with attendance. How will this further impact such status? How will this impact the achievement gap if students are attending schools at a lesser rate? I just wanted to share these concerns with you and urge the board to recognize when voices are missing and think of ways to connect to the missing voices. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
In person, in the boardroom, we have Jasmine Smith and Courtney Horozdowski. I apologize. I'll let you pronounce it when you get up here. Thank you.
You want to go first? Just go. Okay, I'll go first. She's being shy. Hello, my name is Jasmine Smith. I have some notes on my cell phone, so I'm going to read those. I am a single parent with twins in an elementary school. I am a business owner and an employer. I also serve as the Mountain View Community Council Vice President. And so recently we had a council meeting where the conversation of the school start times came up, and that is what prompted me to be here to testify. Similar to what other people have said, I'm here speaking on behalf of the data collection issue portion of the surveying. It's one thing to say that a survey was completed and a lot of people took that survey, but if you can't answer who the lot of people were, it doesn't have so much merit. It's easy to say the majority of the people who took the survey agreed, but who are those people? And when we asked those questions respectfully, they said they had to get back to us on that data. And that prompts me to say, how do we know this data is thorough enough to say this warrants changing school times and putting a wrench into an already systemic childcare issue in 3 months? So questions that should be considered to really determine whose voices you're hearing, which I can say I'm very active with my kids in school. I did not take the survey, but things to consider, for example, Mountain View, majority of the parents still don't have reliable internet. So how would they take an internet-based survey? A lot of the people in our community speak a different language. So what were the language access options? At the town hall, there was barely anybody brown. So they clearly weren't there. So who was the majority of they that supported the survey that was taken? Other questions that could be asked that would help drive home this point is, for the people who took the survey, were they 1 or 2 parent households? Did they have a car or no car? Did they ride the bus or no bus? Does their school have buses or was it a walking school? Do they have older children who watch their kids after school? Where do they currently go to for childcare? What would be their after school plan or their morning plan? And most importantly, because we already have a fragile system, are these current daycare providers prepared to make this level of change in 90 days, such as Campfire, Boys and Girls Club, Trailside, and all the others to accommodate these changes? And lastly, I just want to say that we need to revise the data collection and look at this a little bit better, because there really were a lot of voices that just were not heard. And it's not sufficient enough to just say the majority who took it agreed if we have no idea who the majority is. And I was going to leave the rest to my daughter. Oh, you let me get my 30
gets
seconds.
her own 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. Let me take my 34-minute. No, I'm kidding. And so in closing, we always look forward for things that are going to be innovative and help our students, but it just wasn't thorough enough. It wasn't an equitable rollout, and 90 days literally is way too fast of a turnaround time to ask this level of families to change their course of action for school, or to ask these employers and childcare providers to change their whole system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you please state your name?
My name's Zakaya, and I go to Tyson Elementary. I love my neighborhood, and our voice matters. Let's go do a school time town hall in my community. Please and thank you. We have a lot to say.
And thank you very much. Courtney? And then we'll have Kevin Klott. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi, my name is Courtney Horostovsky. It's long.
Horostovsky. Thank
yes,
you.
It's long. I have 2, I'm a parent of 3. I have 2 in elementary school, 1 coming up into elementary school, and another one that will be there in about 5 or 6 years. So I'll be in ASD presumably for like 20 years. I live in Shugiak, and I think that there's a lot of issues in that end of the community that are different from communities more in the core of Anchorage. I am against the time change, especially on this shortened timeline. I think we can all agree that kids who have support at home from parents who are less stressed and just support at home do better in school anyways. And I think elementary school kids need that direct hands-on parental support more than older students. Kindergartners can't do their homework without somebody to quiz them on their letters and their sounds and their numbers. Older kids can do their homework generally without help. I recognize the benefits that studies have shown that this has on older kids, but I haven't seen anything that shows a benefit on younger kids. And the information from the district has only indicated those who support the change for middle and high school and did not indicate the change of how many people supported or disapproved of this for elementary school. I am no longer in a dual working household. My family is fortunate enough that I was able to leave my job in order to deal with childcare pickup, school drop-offs. It's a lot. Anybody who's a parent of elementary school kids knows it's a lot. And after we had COVID, we had remote learning, we had shortened school days. After school care dropped their hours at my kids' school. So even if I am in Campfire, the hours were skipped. So I had to cut my hours, take pay cuts. I know not everybody has those kinds of options available to them or the financial security to do so. Elementary school kids are 55% of the students in the student body. That's me roughly. Am I out of time?
Looks like your mic went off.
There you go. There? Oh, I accidentally brushed it. That's my math. It's probably not exact, but it makes sense that more than half of the students in the district are in elementary school and their parents are trying to help them get through school. Let's see. When I went to the town hall, There was a lot of talk about how the chamber was surveyed and all of this local analysis was done in 2018. Since then, we've had a pandemic, we've had earthquakes. Nothing has been updated to whether the chamber is even considering the needs of parents rather than their needs for students to work after school. And I think, again, as many have said, the amount of time to put this in is just so short. It's almost summer. People are already planning their summer vacations. They've got plans set, and to put this all into effect that quickly is just a huge hardship. Our PTA meeting, hardly anybody had heard of this at last week's meeting, and this is us getting ready to go into the summer already.
Thank you very much. Kevin and Susan Michelle Greer. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. State your name, please.
My name is Kevin Klott. Good evening. My name is Kevin Klott. I'm a language arts and video productions teacher at Golden View Middle School. I also coach debate, and I serve as the language arts department chair. It's my 9th year teaching in the Anchorage School District, all of which have been in middle school. I'm here today to encourage the school board to vote no on the proposed school start times, especially for middle school. While I understand the research points to more sleep for teenagers, this push to start middle school at 9:30 and end at 4 will not solve the sleep issue. Instead, this proposed schedule will negatively affect academic outcomes, extracurricular activities, and teacher-coach retention. Step foot inside a middle school classroom after 1 p.m. and you'll notice the energy level takes, a drastic shift. Teachers, especially in core subjects, have to work so much harder during periods 6 and 7 to keep students focused and engaged, and moving the final bell to 4 p.m. will make our job to improve student outcomes even more challenging. While it's true that teenagers need their sleep, delaying the start time to 9:30 will not necessarily result in more rest for students. Many will choose to just stay up later, which will completely defeat the purpose of starting later. When I hear students tell me that they didn't get enough sleep and I ask them why, I get 2 responses. Either they were on their phone or they were playing video games. So maybe instead of spending resources to shift an entire community's schedule, perhaps we could focus more of our time and conversations on student screen time and social media usage. Pushing middle school to 4 p.m. will also negatively impact hundreds of students who participate in after-school sports and activities. Pushing middle school practices to start at 4:15 means students leave practice at 5:45, which means they'll go home after 6 o'clock. This will cause harm to the time students spend on homework and with family and friends. Furthermore, what teacher will want to coach when they likely won't get home from practices until after 6 or later? And what about competitions? With our current schedule, students aren't getting home from games and meets until after 9 o'clock or even later. You think that's a good idea for a 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old? Pushing middle school to 4 p.m. will effectively crush teacher-coach retention and ultimately defeat the purpose of helping students get more sleep and better grades. In conclusion, I encourage the school board to maintain the current middle school start time. It's important to prioritize students' health and well-being. Changing the middle school schedule from 9:30 to 4 would create more problems than it solves. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. In the room, Jason, looks like Katz Brown after Ms. Greer.
Hi, thank you. I'm a teacher in the ASD. This is my 13th year, and then also the parent of an incoming kindergartner. There are several reasons why changing school start times to later in the day for middle school and high school students and earlier start times for elementary students may not be the best approach. First, a change in start times would have a significant impact on the daily routines of students, parents, and teachers. Many families rely on consistent school schedules to plan their day, coordinate extracurricular activities. Changing the start times would cause disruptions to these routines, causing confusion and potentially negative impacts on student performance. Moreover, a change in school start times could also impact after-school activities such as sports and clubs. They may need to adjust their schedules as well. This could cause scheduling conflicts and make it more challenging for students to participate in extracurricular activities, which have been shown to have numerous benefits for students. Additionally, implementing different start times will impact our community. Anchorage is facing a childcare crisis. There are not enough programs to meet our current need, but changing elementary to earlier will increase the demand for after-school childcare. As it is, there are not enough options available. Furthermore, changing school start times will not address the underlying issues that are causing sleep deprivation in students. There are many factors that can impact the quality and quantity of student sleep, including homework, technology use, and extracurricular activities. Rather than changing start times, schools could focus on addressing these underlying issues, such as reducing homework loads, encouraging healthy sleep habits, and limiting technology use before bed. In conclusion, while the idea of changing school start times may seem appealing, it is important to consider the potential negative impacts it could have on students, families, schools, and our community. Instead, our schools should focus on addressing the underlying issues that are causing our sleep deprivation in students and find alternative solutions that do not disrupt daily routines and our extracurricular activities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jason, whenever you're ready, you have 3 minutes. State your name.
Great, thank you. Thank you, President Bellamy and the whole board. My name is Jason Katz-Brown. I'm a new substitute teacher, and it's been a year of delight and surprise, mostly really delightful surprises. But one bad surprise was when I first taught at high school here. Most classes I taught, at least one student or more would fall asleep during class. And then often when I would walk around the school, high school during lunch, like most hallways, I would see some students trying to catch up on sleep. And I was surprised, but it's not on them. It's on us to center and prioritize their wellness, their sleep, and their health. I'd also love to frame this from the perspective of a new teacher, and we can frame this as a way to help our efforts to recruit and retain teachers like me by showing that we're helping prioritize their health and sleep and wellness. I am more likely to teach next year. I think we're more likely to get more teachers to teach in Anchorage, maybe even move to Anchorage if our schools don't start insanely early. Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was our last person signed up to testify on Memorandum 141. So that is the motion before you. What is the pleasure of the board? Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I just want to open up with a reflection first. I guess we've spent the bulk of our fall talking about our budget, which has direct ties to our state economy, our state budget, oil prices, oil volatility, the permanent fund, things that are far outside of control of this boardroom and our purview as board members. It struck me with the influx of emails that we've received as both daunting and disappointing at times that the conversations and the drawbacks to this change aren't purely academic focused. It's shortcomings of our community setup, our society, our state, with the childcare crisis we're experiencing. And I'm not sure, I'm debating whether or not when we set up our advocacy plan for the legislature, if we need to sincerely consider including childcare in our plan, our lobbying plan. We're connecting with lawmakers as it has a direct impact. We're hearing in our community, and parents are right now given a false choice of leaving the workforce or paying an additional mortgage payment to ensure that they have adequate childcare. There's another conversation that needs to happen here. ASD parents non-ASD parents, we deserve better than this. So I think we need to make it a point of advocacy based on some of what we're hearing. I think I'm hopeful Proposition 14 will change some of that. There's right now bills in the legislature that could dramatically impact access to childcare, investing millions and millions of dollars in the system. And so I'm hopeful that we're paying attention to those global solutions, because we shouldn't allow the status quo to remain acceptable as a community, as a state. So turning the attention to the proposal, it's a challenge in that I think we heard compelling data in a presentation earlier this year that the science supports the proposal. I'm curious as to what other board members think. I've said previously that I think there is a compelling case to seriously examining a delayed start for a year. I'm not sure if that's something the majority of the board would support. Anxious to hear other thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jacobs. Other comments, Member Lessons?
Thank you, community members, for being here tonight. Thank you to the administration for bringing forward this recommendation, having this conversation, bringing some really remarkable researchers to the discussion. I think those are Dr. Meltzer is a national leader, and it was an honor to have her here. Thank you, Member Jacobs, for your pointed comments that we are situated in an environment that we cannot control. I think that, again, as I look around the room, we have goals about reading proficiency and math proficiency and college career life readiness. And as someone who supports extracurricular activities, who believes in the power of community, the importance of play outside and daylight, I also don't see our role as board members as being beholden to providing childcare to the community as a whole. I am not convinced that delaying this conversation a year is going to solve a childcare crisis. I don't know what magic button is going to be pushed between now and 12 months from now to solve the childcare crisis. So I do want to stress that I hear and respect the concerns that stakeholders have shared about middle school, about decreasing participation in after-school activities potentially, compressed time for homework. I think that there's a larger conversation to have about the place of homework. Generally, given what we know about online learning, probably the same disparities are functioning within homework. That's a separate kettle of fish. And concerns about, older students currently providing childcare to younger students. Quite frankly, that's, in my opinion, I don't think it's fair to hold our secondary students and the particular science of their development hostage to these forces over which we don't have any control. So, I wrote a lot of things in preparation for this meeting because I find it helpful for organizing my thoughts. But I don't see what delaying the conversation a year is going to buy us. And I am respectfully and sincerely under the belief that changing our start times tonight will provide our adolescent students and our board goals for student learning a path forward. I want to bring you back to the last board meeting that we had. When I shared the tally that I made, that 14,524 of our students are chronically absent this year. The numbers do not look good. And the first thing that I believe that Dr. Johnson shared was that our students are undergoing a mental health crisis. And I think, I'm not a sleep researcher, but my understanding of sleep deprivation, of chronic sleep deprivation, is that it is a major factor. And yes, our families and our students have got to deal with the fact that we have these devices in our life. Maybe IT, we can buy some blue screens to put on Chromebooks. And maybe that's something we as a district can do. We don't have the agency to go and tell people to go to bed earlier. We could ask our public health partners just like there's a great campaign trying to get, parents of kids under 2 not to give them sugary drinks, right? We could ask our public health partners to promote sleep, and that would be wonderful. But as a board, our job is, as in front of you, the quality of our programs is dependent upon the quality of our conversations around student learning data, keeping a laser focus on our children's success. That is our job as board members. We are in charge of the structure of the school day, the school year. I think that this is an important lever that we can pull to improve our student outcomes when it comes to attendance, when it comes to grades. I want to bring your attention to one of the many emails we received. One of our high school teachers shared, my first period class of juniors has 10 to 12 absent daily out of 26. Of that number, 6 to 8 eventually come, some by minutes, others by over 30. Of the 26 students, 10 have Fs. My 3 other junior classes combined do not have that many Fs. This problem is occurring within all other grade levels and subjects. Data will verify lower grades and attendance issues for most first period classes. When we ask our high school and our middle school students to get up in what is effectively biological night, given that adolescent phase delay takes place as they're going through puberty, it is a particular stage of their life. We're saying that we think it's okay to cut out, 25% of their sleep. What's really interesting is that the nature of adolescent sleep, again, from what I've been trying to learn, half of their REM sleep, right? The dreaming that takes place where memory is encoded, where emotions are being processed, half of that REM sleep takes place at the end of their sleep cycle. We're cutting that out. We make them get up before they are ready to do so. And then they experience social jet lag on the weekends where they compensate. They sleep in 3 hours. It's like flying across the country and then having them get up on Monday morning with the whole social and physiological whiplash that brings. So again, it's my understanding that the start time changes from a school systems perspective will not see negative impacts to our elementary students with an 8 a.m. start time. But we will if we look at what other school systems around the country have done. Going back to Minneapolis in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that's it's about as analogous to Anchorage as you're going to get. There aren't too many other school systems north of Minnesota. And you can look at, research stations in Antarctica. I was trying to understand what the data shares about sleep, but there are not bodies of work on adolescence in Alaska. I will say, because I've got the mic, that I did take the time to look at time and date, like when the sun rises in Anchorage in this current school year. I compared it with our current schedule. And although, yes, if we change our start times, elementary students will spend more mornings in the dark. Currently, the first round of elementary bus pickups or walkers already wait in the dark before sunrise 79 days of the year. It's about 46%. They're already in the dark. I've been there with my kids. I've done it. It's actually kind of magical. The first round of middle school pickups wait before sunrise 63% of the school year, about 109 days. The first round of high school pickups currently wait before sunrise, or as new drivers drive in the dark on our icy winter roads, 81% of the year, 140 of our days. If we support scenario 5, we're going to decrease the number and the percent of pre-dawn bus riding and driving for high school students to 56% of the year and decrease it for middle school to 36% of the year. We're going to allow these students access to sunrise, to daylight before the school starts a significant number of days of the year, more than they are currently. And that is going to activate their circadian rhythms and get them, because when you get that light exposure early in the day, that's going to set you up for a better sleep that night with that early morning light. We are going to be helping their circadian rhythms by checking in with the sun more days than we are currently doing so. So yes, elementary students will wait for the bus more than they currently are, but I think that the benefit of the adolescent sleep health outweighs that.
Okay, thank you. Member Wilson and then Member Holloman.
So I didn't write nearly as much as Member Lessons, but I've been listening to our community as much as I possibly can as well. And I appreciate everybody who's come here to testify tonight and the emails we received and the surveys they participated in and the town halls and all of that information. And I want to respond to Member Jacobs because and to some of the testimony, I don't think it would be truly beneficial to rush our families to scramble to adjust for a start time starting in the fall. I think our staff, our community, our programs, our families, our community partners deserve the time to prepare for this change. And I'm just thinking to our 6th grade to middle school, we've given our staff a year to prepare for that change so it can be done properly so everyone has notice. I feel very strongly that I think our families and our schools deserve that time as well. So I would love to see the language changed, and I'm happy to propose a motion to amend the current motion to request that this change begin in the 2024-2025 school year.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
So moved by Member Wilson, second by Member Jacobs, to adjust the memo with a start date of 24, what would it be, 24, 25? To begin 2024-25 school year. Okay. So, did you want to speak more to your motion or?
I'm sorry, that pretty much covers it for me is the opportunity for our community, our families, our staff, our community partners and the programs, our athletics, our after school programs. I mean, all of those programs to have that opportunity to adjust their programs and their time schedules. It's just time to prepare.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Member Higgins, do I see your mic on?
You do.
All right.
I would like to hear what the superintendent has to say with the proposal. I know that I like chess. I like sitting on both sides of the table and sometimes arguing with myself. That way I usually win. And this is a tough situation. We have a crisis in academics. Okay, there is no question. We have said, and I got on the school board. My commitment has been to do everything possible to increase those academic scores. They are awful. We've got kids that are going to pay a price for that in the future. If we don't address it now, there's going to be more and more kids with the same outcome, and it's just unacceptable. We have got to do everything in our power to do it. I also understand and accept the impact it has on families and trying to make adjustments. Losing teachers is not a winning solution. Having impacts on families that's going to undermine their support of having problems. We really do have a child care issue. And I've got beat up by my 2 daughters on that. Okay. And I understand that too. But I'm concerned about the crisis we're in and not doing everything in our power right now to increase academic outcomes, which are totally unacceptable. The change that we've made in regards to curriculum, the impact that we're making other decisions on right now has got to be totally student focused, in my opinion. And that has got to be the outcome. I listened to the arguments, both sides of this coin. I really do appreciate it. Clearly, the issues about family care and all, we knew that was going to be a problem, whether it's this year or next year, it doesn't make any difference. It's still going to have a big impact on families, and it's going to be a problem. I understand that. I also know that the hard facts say that it's logical to keep it the way it is. It's logical to change it, But when you've already got the race won and the data is already there saying that academically scores will go up, it's difficult not to say that's the direction we need to go. I believe in logical decisions. I'm totally in that category. I don't like emotional decisions. And when you've got hard data saying that academic scores improve by making these changes, when they came in front of the board, we had a 7-0, go forward, find out, do what you can. My reservation on holding back is it's another year that will be not beneficial for student outcomes. And we have really bad student outcomes right now. Superintendent did a job understanding that. He made the commitment, and I believe him, that he's going to do all that he can to increase academic improvement. I don't want to see another year wasted. And I do agree with you. We need to come out with a plan quickly on addressing the after-school problem. We've got to address the daycare issues. You know, I hate to call it daycare, but it's the after-school issues. We've got to do that. It's going to have an impact this year or next year, but I want the academic impacts now. I want to do everything possible to improve student performance. It's not fair to do anything other than to be student focused at this point. We all know what the issue is. We've all seen the data. We've seen declines. We've seen all kinds of issues the last 5-6 years. It's been an ongoing problem. I want every solution on the table, and if it's positive for kids, I'm going to vote that way. That's the only way I feel like I can vote. Anything short of that is not keeping with what my commitment is for students. Students first, students second, students only. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Higgins. We're going to go to Member Holloman and then to Member Jacobs.
I don't want to give up my spot on the main question.
No, I have a different
I will
question.
say, I do agree that I think this would be short notice. This will come up again. It'll come up again until we change it, and then it'll start coming up again whether or not we should change it back. So this is something boards are going to see over and over again. The public will see over and over again, because it will, whatever system we have will always be difficult for some people and it'll be wonderful for some others. But I would say to the administration, I appreciate you bringing it forward, and it takes a lot of thought, and I don't know that there's a perfect plan out there, but I would urge any board to consider it in the fall, so that it could be adopted and there would be a spring semester of normal operations. I say that feeling like I don't know when we've seen normal in a long time, but I'm sure it still exists somewhere. But that would give child care providers time to really make a plan and try to staff up, would give parents time to make a plan, not just during the summer, because I think that's a hard time for communication and for people to really grasp what's going on. But I would be in favor of this motion in terms of delaying it, but also when the question comes back around again, that it be considered in the fall.
Member Jacobs. Thank you, Member Holloman.
Yeah, thank you, President Bellamy. I just want to clarify my understanding of the amendment is that should the amendment pass, that the board will be giving concrete direction to the administration to begin the work, the planning, the coalition building with local and state partners to prepare for the decision that's been made, which is a plan that changes school start times effective not just a few months from now, but the 24-25 school year. There's plenty of work to be done. The Proposition 14 committee hasn't yet been formed. Bills that would appropriate significant resources to childcare are still languishing in the Alaska legislature, awaiting passage, and they'll resume their work in January after they adjourn here as soon as 8 days from now. There's time for industry to build up. We have work to do clearly in terms of community outreach and connecting with parents and getting them on board, finding out if there's additional resources that we can provide as a district. The child care table is certainly one that we should have a seat at, but I don't believe it's our table. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something to consider. as active as we are, we're going to have to lean on the community to bridge this gap once these changes go into effect. And so, and to be completely transparent, I will support the underlying measure in all likelihood should the amendment fail. But I think that this is a reasonable compromise that 100% supports students based on a data-centric focus, but also allows middle ground to support our middle school teachers, to support industry as it transitions, and to support our families, given that summer is just a very short time away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Bryant.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. So I do recognize that people feel very strongly about this issue on multiple fronts. There are community members that very urgently want the change to happen, and some are in favor of, changing it now. We completely acknowledge that point of view for all the reasons that we've discussed. But the administration does not have opposition to delaying this by a year. While we'll lose the benefits in terms of mental health supports, I do want to recognize and make the public aware of the potential upsides. And one of the potential upsides of delaying by a year would be to align this with our 6th grade to middle school efforts. It would allow us more time to work directly with teachers to support them through the process of transferring between a middle to an elementary school, if that aligns more with what their long-term plans are in terms of when they would like to report to work. And then it'll allow us more time to have a concrete plan for how the district will be a part of the solution when it comes to leveraging Prop 14 for good, when it comes to supporting the community. That was one of the main drawbacks of the current proposal as is because the proposition is so new, we're not even fully aware of what types of initiatives that the muni is willing to fund through Prop 14. And this would give us time to have a seat at the table and to advocate for ways that we can partner and be part of that childcare solution. So there are clear upsides to a delay. I do want to recognize one of the comments made earlier, though, about academic achievement. Would delaying this by a year put us at risk at not making the gains that we aspire to as a board for academic achievement? And I would say in the big picture, we're still on track. I mean, remember that we're on track to move our 6th graders to middle school so they can take advantage of rich career and technical education offerings and more enrichment at the middle school level. We recently adopted a new K-3 curriculum in line with our board goals and guardrails. We're doing a number of different things, and I do want to shout out our college career and life readiness initiative. So we're aggressively planning for implementing freshman academies to support our students early on so they can participate in industry credential programs or college coursework. So we are making progress in the bigger picture. Will we lose the immediate benefit of the mental health support going into next year? Yes, according to the research. So that is a consideration for the board to consider. But I will say, listening to tonight's testimony, time and the time to plan, the somewhat a desire to have more time to really have concrete answers for the district's position on childcare and these other factors would be a benefit gained from a delay. So I just want to put all of the facts out there on both sides.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. So I have struggled with the initial discussion in 2018. I struggled with what that meant for families. I struggled. Then COVID hit. And COVID, whether you believe it's real or not, impacted our students and our community in ways that we don't even know that it has impacted us. Our students are struggling. Our staff are struggling. And I think anything we can do, I'll support, for me, it has to be when, not if. When we implement and extend our school days, whether that's this year or next year, it's good for kids. That's where I'm coming from. So whether if the board wishes to take a year to do that, then so be it. Personally, I don't think we can afford to wait. I think we have put it off long enough. We have put everybody's problem ahead of our students. And I get it. I was one of those kids who had to take care of siblings my whole high school career, actually starting in elementary school, actually. I mean, I was smart. I was big for my age. I could feed them. I could cook, but I missed so much. So I struggle with what that means among students who are already struggling, and they cannot articulate the struggle. We didn't have science in my day to say, okay, Margot needs a little more sleep. No. I had a single mom too. So I get it. I get the struggle. But we have got to break through in ways for our kids that are painful because they deserve it. So I'm not for putting it off. I'm for getting it done now. But I will abide by whatever the will of the board is. So with that, if there are no other comments, I did wait till last. I gave everybody their chance. Have we heard from everybody who wishes to be heard from? What about our students? Our students, any comments from our students?
We kind of briefly talked about it, just him and I. We did kind of come up with we feel as if it would hurt more students because I know personally, if my school were to start later, I would be the one who would stay up later and be getting the same amount of sleep, but just set back at a different time. That may just be me and my bad sleeping habits, but I do know it would give students that mental thing of, oh, well, now I have more time to sleep in so I can stay up later, stay up to do projects and things like this. So as much as it would help with students' test scores and all of that, they said I am also a student who sleeps in class. That is, again, may just be me, but I think it's more of just school's draining for students, especially after COVID, that I just think it's a student by student basis. Not everyone's the same. Some people are in bed by 10 p.m. I'm just starting my homework by 10 p.m. So I think, it could start with, it depends on a student's mental health of how their sleeping is or their homework load. I know some people have a full AP schedule plus sports, plus they live in Girdwood, things like that go into factors. So I think Josh and I kind of came up with a conclusion that it may not be the best option for especially those students who have jobs after school who provide a main income for their families, especially for single parents. So from a high school basis, that's my little opinion, but I'm not exactly sure how it would affect those elementary school kids, especially because I went to a private school, so I don't know the busing system within an ASD elementary school.
Okay, thank you.
What are we saying?
Okay, thank you guys. Did you have anything else? Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll go back to member lessons. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. I'm thinking about the teacher's comment about the students falling asleep in class. And that resonates with research telling us that this generation of students, the Joshes and the Ellies and their younger siblings, you are the most sleep deprived generation the world has ever seen. That's not something that we should take lightly. And again, I don't really know how delaying the decision a year is going to change that. But what I do know is that when teenagers don't get the sleep that they need, they're at higher use for all sorts of terrible outcomes. Marijuana, alcohol, cigarette use, being sexually active, considering suicide. feeling sad, hopeless, physically fighting. We just heard the administration share that fighting and assaults are through the roof this year. Being more sedentary, having more screen time. And at a national level, right, the changes if every district were to change their school start times, the savings, the economic benefits from improved graduation rates, improved college attendance, improved health outcomes would be in the billions after a few years. So this is bigger than ASD. I realize we're not going to change the world right here, right now, but we can play a really important part in changing Anchorage. And in changing Anchorage, we can help transform our state.
Okay. Member Higgins, go on.
Oh,
I'll come back around.
I didn't know you were
Both of you had your mics on.
I just one last comment, and it was at the East High School where we had the hearing. We had a representative from the business community came in, and I still recall that very strongly. And he said, if this improves academics, the scores show that doesn't. We're losing 28 to 32-year-olds in this state because and education is directly related. You need to do it. And it was pushed that way from the business community. And then I looked back at when I came to Alaska. I'm not going to give you the year because I'm going to tell you I was between 28 and 32 and leave it at that. But I came here because I didn't want to stay where I'm at because the education system was bad. And I understand that. I'm putting the kids first. Came to Alaska because Alaska schools were a lot better. There were other issues there, social issues. I didn't want to be involved with that, and I didn't want my kids involved with it. Right now, I don't know what I would do in Anchorage. If I saw the academic results, if I was here in the same situation with the same scores, I don't know what I would do if I was the 28 to 32-year-old with 3 kids. But I do know that it's an important issue, and it should be an important issue for families. And we can't afford to lose the 28 to 32-year-olds what the business community was saying. And I think they're right. And I think this is directly related. But having good schools is really strong for the economy. And we need to do better than what we're doing. We need to transform this school district and make something of it real fast. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like everyone has had an opportunity to speak who wishes to. The motion before you is to adjust memorandum number 141 with the start date of 24-25 school year. Are we able to online vote or should we do a vote? Looks like everybody.
Do it out loud.
Well, let's do a voice. Just do a voice vote.
Member Wilson? Yes. Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Lessons?
No.
Member Holloman?
Yes.
Member Higgins?
No.
Member Donley?
Yes.
President Bellamy?
No. Okay, that's motion 4-3. It passes 4-3. That brings us back to the original memo. The original motion. As amended, yes. All right, so now we are voting on the original memorandum as amended. Yes, comments. Member Holloman?
Once again, I want to say I appreciate what the administration's done in bringing this forward. I do think that as a board, we've been channeled into looking at just a small number of solutions for this based on the fact that our transportation situation drives so much of what we can do. If I if I was the superintendent, which there's no danger of, I would want to see us try to expand how long our high schools are open each day, somehow providing transportation, because we do have students that come and use those buildings early. We have students that show up at 6:30 ready to go because there are things they want to do. And we have other students that would much rather show up about 9 or 10 o'clock and begin their day then. And I wish we could be open earlier and stay open later and somehow offer that latitude so that families and students could customize their own particular schedule to whatever is driving them. I do understand what some of the board members have said, and that we have a responsibility to look at student outcomes. But we also, I think, really have a responsibility to understand that for school families, life revolves around school, and this impacts their lives. It will change the schedule of every single person associated with the district in some fashion or another. And that's a huge thing to impact. My biggest issue when I look at middle school ending at 4 p.m., and to be open and honest, that was where I spent most of my academic career. It really changes the nature of what we can do. And granted, we're not doing as much after school in middle school as we used to, although that was a goal of the program when it was rolled out 20 some years ago. It would preclude a lot of things happening. A lot of kids are just going to go home that right now are staying and participating in different things. And I do think it will negatively impact the ability to get adults to stay and work with kids for any length of time after the school is out. So I hope we can look at some other more creative solutions than just shuffling the cards on the order and moving the time by a little bit. I do want to say to everybody, it's an incredibly complicated thing. There's not a simple change that just works. And so I don't want to complain too much, but I cannot support the schedule that's been presented to us here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Holloman. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I support the amended version of this proposal for reasons that we've articulated over the last few months and beyond. Started the conversation, prior board started the conversation in 2018. I think that by allowing this extra time, we have the ability to begin that coalition building work, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that process along with the administration. I think we need to continue to have a broader conversation as to what the intersection is between ASD and the broader after school, before school childcare dynamic. But with that said, I have no reservations about passing this. And to be clear, I view this as, should this memorandum as amended be adopted, I view this as a clear direction from the board that administration will begin laying the groundwork for that planning effective immediately. And so I guess I wanted to clarify that point with Dr. Bryant.
Okay. Thank you, Member Jacobs. Dr. Bryant, did you have a...
Yeah, well received. So should this motion pass, the administration will begin creating a long-range plan, backwards planning from the implementation in 24-25.
Other questions or comments? Member Fessum.
So I appreciate the opportunity to continue the conversation. I wanted to share, maybe for socialization purposes, that there was a story on the front page of Sunday's ADN about schools that are considering start time changes in support of students' mental health and academics nationwide, which included Anchorage. Denver was another major school system that's considering a change. Denver has 213 schools, so a bigger situation to sort out there. But what was interesting in that article is that the district profiled at the front of the story has changed its in-person time for high school students. And that just sort of got my wheels spinning. And it's interesting, Member Holloman, that you shared, well, what about a longer high school day? Well, my thought was, what about a shorter high school day? And I think that there could be something interesting and maybe something to it if, as we hear more about the prospect of academies, right, of students potentially linking part of their learning to opportunities in and around the community, to have a shorter, tighter in-person window of high school, which could allow elementary and middle to have something that's still evidence-based, but within a tighter range. And high school would sort of be sandwiched there in the middle for busing purposes. So anyways, I'm not going to propose that solution, but I sketched it out. And anyways, I think with the motion on the table for the 24-25 school year, I would be interested in revisiting this conversation as the administration envisions academies. And to the point earlier about, next fall, well, frankly, I think we're going to be talking about our FY25 shortfall a lot next fall, because we are not seeing enough of a BSA increase to close our gap for FY25. So I know a lot of time and energy is going to be spent on that. But I do think we will continue to look forward with our mind's eye focus on our student outcomes. And I would be interested in understanding how an academy model could complement and maybe even refine anything we approve here tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Not seeing here in any other. Yes, Member Wilson.
I am glad you brought up the CCL work, the college career life readiness work in the academies, because I'm super excited about that work. And I am very pleased that the board has chosen to allow for a little more time for preparation of not just families, but our district, their work with the CCL, with the academies, and how we can incorporate into that into our time changes. I just had a vision of going to a beginning of the year barbecue and families that had not have heard about the time change yet. I mean, I'm looking forward to the fall, and I that would have been really disheartening for me to see that families at the last minute would have had to change their entire schedule to accommodate our change without enough notification. Nevertheless, I appreciate the board supporting that, and I will actually support this amendment for those time changes to start in 2024.
Okay, not seeing here any. Thank you, Member Wilson. Let's vote.
Member Donley,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
No.
Member Higgins, Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
yes,
Member Lessons,
Yes.
President Bellamy,
Yes. And that passes 6-1. Thank you very much. We're moving on under our action items to item 3, which is the adoption of a tentative agreement with the Anchorage Principals Association.
Madam President, I move to approve ASD Memorandum number 152, adoption of tentative agreement, Anchorage Principals Association.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second to adopt the tentative agreement between the ASD and the Anchorage Principals Association. We have a speaker signed up. Mr. Prince, come forward, please. Welcome. You have as much time as you need. No, I'm joking. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President, fellow school board members, Dr. Bryant. I'm here tonight as the representative for the Anchorage Principals Association, and I would just like to submit this testimony and letter The Anchorage Principals Association would like to submit a letter of support for the 2023-26 tentative agreement. The tentative agreement the Anchorage School District and the Anchorage Principal Association created is a clear demonstration of the partnership and the Anchorage Principals Association. Respectfully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From the board, yes, Member Higgins, I see you turn your mic on.
Recording in progress.
Critical. That's been stretched in the past, recent past. And
Member Lessons.
So mine is yes, with full disclosure that my husband's a principal, so I don't know if we want to count my yes.
Member Higgins.
yes.
Member Donley.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. Member Wilson, you may abstain if you
Probably should abstain, yes.
Have a conversation as to how we can make sure our support.
We had turnover and changes.
And the work to communicate, to engage, and to execute a plan for both that and for PLCs, because I truly believe that's going in supporting teachers. And I think that'll go a long way when it comes to our goals for reading and math. So that said, back to the school start times, it will be a top priority. We'll figure out a way to priorities on my mind is monitoring the student transportation staffing situation, because this time around, I really do want to be as proactive as possible. The to our transportation services and be a good partner to make sure that we're communicating presses. I don't have any quite as many incredible educators, and we retain them so that we can make progress on our board goals. On a related note, I wanted to give a congratulations to Miss Catherine Walker of Diamond High School and Miss Megan Henry of West High School for being named finalists for Alaska Teacher of the Year. They are truly shining bright. It was also recently Principal Appreciation Day, and we value our building leaders and everything they do for our communities and students. This year in particular, we had many first-year principals, and congratulations to them for making it. Challenges aren't easier just because it's your first year. And they grew as leaders too. We also have fantastic experienced principals in the district, and they play an invaluable role in mentoring and helping other leaders in the district. One great example would be Mr. Dave Nogg, the Golden View principal. Sorry, my throat's dry. The Golden View principal who was named a finalist for Alaska Principal of the Year. So thank you for representing Team ASD. And we want to recognize our student dedicated to serving our students nutritious meals. So last week, I met one of our incredible cafeteria managers, Miss Donna Yates at Fire Lake. Students more food choice and reduce food waste. It was really great to see, and Taco Tuesday was a hit with the students. So we thank you. Of our food service professionals for all the work that you do for students. And school nurses, and we're grateful to have dedicated to keep our students feeling healthy. And lastly, we also recently recognized our administrative one right here at the dais in Miss Amanda Foster. And I want to personally share my thanks for our hardworking administrative support staff, because they truly are the glue that keeps our school communities operating smoothly. And then just a couple more shine brights and congratulations this afternoon. So thank you, Conrado Gerlin and Ellen Scott and the entire maintenance grounds department for being examples of excellence in ASD. So all of that to say that Team ASD shines bright, and we are so thankful to have you in our community. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Member lessons?
I have like 6 or 7. So I wanted to share that I had a really wonderful chance to go to one of our kindergarten classrooms and spend a few hours there last week. Among other things, I got to read Cora Cook's Pen Sit to their class, and I shared in the dish brought in by a student and his mom, and listened to a number of the kiddos share their own multilingual superpowers. And I bring this up because I want to see value in that. I'm really happy food service workers tonight. I think that as state leaders, talk about wanting to critical to share that those are components of supporting our classrooms, and that we need staff in a competitive labor market in order to ensure the success of our classroom teachers. And with respect to the PLCs, we've had
The different groups. I appreciate all that everyone in our schools are doing. Our teachers, our principals, our staff, our TAs, our everyone. There's so many folks doing so many wonderful things in our schools. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Madam President, for every one of our staff that make magic happen. And folks have said and very eloquently already. I did want to shout out just to speak to how broad the coalition is that make so was honored to be there. Looking forward to graduations in Eagle River and Shukiak next week. Did want to give a special shout out to all of our graduates. I don't have any in my home this year, but I'm on track for 2 next year. So looking forward to those. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jacobs. Member Higgins.
Thank you. I just want to, first of all, express my appreciation to everyone that spoke out about changing times. There's logical arguments on both sides. I heard passion fighting for their children and what they think is best for students. And that's a good discussion. That's always a good discussion. So I appreciate that. I just want to put things in perspective a little bit, that things can change. When I got on school board first time in 2008, we had close to about 60% graduation rate. And I went to a 3rd grade class and there was 30 kids up there singing. And I said, if we don't change anything, 12 of those kids won't graduate. And I looked at that class and I couldn't pick out kids that shouldn't be able to graduate. and I realized it fell on us. We improved the graduation rate, so it went above 80. So the number from 12 went down to 6, and along those lines. Today, if I look at those classes and I see 30 kids and say 18 can't read, I don't believe it. I know we can do it and we can make the changes. So just reflecting forward with the problems, let's not overlook what we've done. We've got curriculum change. We've got the 6th grade change. We've got the school start times change. We're looking at different changes. I appreciate the superintendent pushing changes through. We were not going to get the kind of outcomes we want, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's referred to as insanity, right? And so I just want to say I'm proud of the direction we're going with change. And I hope that we actually go from 1st gear to 2nd gear next year. So we accelerate even faster. So my appreciation to everyone that spoke out and the commitment to trying to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Can we get the dates of the committee meetings for this month, please?
We have a finance meeting tomorrow at noon.
Okay. And I think they're on the calendar online. I just don't know when governance is.
So communications is on May 25th at noon, and governance will follow on May 25th at 1 p.m.
Okay. So with that, that concludes our school board comments for the evening. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Madam President, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved in second to adjourn. Any opposition to adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you.